Welcome to the Wednesday night pod for the SC Hub. My name is Munster Mash. You know me, I'm the host. Joining me tonight, I've got my, semi-regular now, Myth. How's it going?
Yeah, not the weekly appearance, but here and there. Yeah, look, it's going all right. Just dealing with the carnage that we all are at the moment.
Don't we know it? This is, I don't think I've seen any other week in Supercoach quite like it. I mean, it has been a bit of a build-up, but still, just the amount of people out, the amount of guns that are out, it's just crazy.
Yeah, if you've somehow missed most of the carnage, I think you're in good position this week to really put the pedal to the metal and take advantage of it. Like 27 round season, we're all going to have times of good luck, times of bad luck. When Lady Luck's on your side, take advantage.
100%. Anyway, I guess we might as well cover a little bit. We've sort of hinted at it. How did you go this week? I personally didn't go too well after a promising start.
Yeah, I ended up with 998, so it wasn't a great round for me. I think that was a red arrow for me back to 13k, which, all things considered, it wasn't too bad. But I really, really nailed my trade-ins of Tino, gone, Cleary, gone, and
Oh, no.
Latrell, awful. So yeah, not great from that sense. Team's in a bit of shambles this week, but we'll find a way through it and move forward. How did you end up?
So I ended up cracking the 1K mark for the first time this year. So 1,002 points. I'm just outside the top 50K. So I've had a fairly average start. I had a really good week. I traded in Tedesco. Obviously, great
Oh,
start to the week, looking really good. And then Captain Hines let me right down.
mm,
And yeah, my week petered out from there. So the good and the bad, fickle mistress that is Supercoach. And
that's
talking
it.
about that fickle mistress, round 4, bloody hell.
I think one thing to take note on is I think it's all condensed very early. There's a lot of good super
Yeah,
coaches that are in the 20,000s, 50,000s, 80,000s even.
yeah.
I wouldn't stress too much. Early days, the teams up the top, if you have a look at them, there's like 5 nuffs, 6 nuffs, 7 nuffs.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to catch these teams just by getting better 17 on the park come like round 8, round 9, round 10 because they've got no cash gen.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Like if you can really set yourself up well for this sort of middle part of the year, as we over the next few weeks we approach Origin and that kind of sort of middle period of the year, as you mentioned, a lot of those top teams have just happened to have those players and have, got 6 and 7 nuffs. So very, very catchable. I think there's going to be a lot of movement rank wise in the next 5 weeks. So yeah, anybody out there that's in a high rank, don't lose faith. It's a long season. It only matters where you're at the end of the year.
Hold on.
All right. Now, look, I think it's the best way we can describe it. It is carnage this week. Absolutely crazy. Look, most people know about all the names going around, but you've hinted at some of the headliners: Cleary, Tino. We've got the obvious replacement for Cleary, and Mitch Moses is out as well. And everyone's, I guess, favorite Broncos mid-ranger, Piakura, and more. Look, we're scratching the surface with the players that are injured and out this week.
Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it? I
It's
think
it's just
every
crazy.
as soon as Cleary went down, everyone's like Moses was the easy guy to go to, and then he was not even a couple hours later, he was gone.
Yeah.
I think a few of us that have had that kiss of death so far must have just preemptively traded him in and killed him before he went on the field.
Yeah,
It's
it was almost
unbelievable.
like it was almost like the other day. You'd go, all right, you look on social media, one player's out, go back to work or whatever, check in a couple of hours later, there's another 2 out. It's just an injury clouds and all sorts of things. It's crazy, and I got an awful feeling that there probably is going to be stuff around 1 hour out from a game and stuff as well. I still think there's more twists in the tail to come.
There's definitely more to come. I think on Monday I was like, maybe I've got to stop going to the bathroom because every time I go, someone else is injured and gone. Just have to
Yeah,
hold it and just push through to just keep the players alive. But I think you're right. There's probably more to come. I think it's a lesson as well that everyone's planning all these trade moves. You're planning, I'm going to do this next week. I'm going to do this the week after. You're going to have to be on your toes. You're going to have to be flexible. More, you have to consider whether or not you go a riskier option versus a safer option with maybe less upside to at least know that position might not be a fire anytime soon.
Yeah.
Injury.
And I guess that's what we're here to cover as experts, or at least they think we are. So we'll dive into it. Look, the headline is for this week is that Cleary's out. You and I were discussing off air. Look, we think there's one fairly obvious move if you can do it, if you've got the players available, and that's Hutcho up and grabbing yourself one of these gun CT dubs that are just killing it at the moment.
Yeah, I was having a look at earlier. I think there's about 15 centre wings that have averaged above 70 to start the season. And that's absurd because personally, I actually went back in the preseason and went, how many of these centre wings average above their season average across the first 6 weeks? And not many of them did. And if they did, it was only by a few points. But a few of them are absolutely flying. If you've got Hutcho there, turns out he's the most handy player in Supercoach. Just flick Cleary to any of them. Take your pick. I guess we'll talk about them at some point. But regarding the Cleary dilemma, that's if you're in that boat, I'd be very thankful for that.
Yeah, look, it is, as I said, it's like there's not a lot of options at halfback at the moment that are shining. So I think that's, the obvious move if you can do it. Look, we might as well start diving into some of these CT dub guns that are just killing it. Look, for me, I think there's a couple of options that are on the bubble this week in the Hammer and Dom Young. I think they'll be probably the two highest, I guess, targets for most people. Not necessarily who I would pick if I had the option, but I think they're going to be pretty much 1 and 2.
Yeah, those break evens really reel people in. And I think they can be quite trappish when it's a 600k player. Sure, they might have a break even of 1, but it's not like these 300k players when if they have a dud score, the break even stays low. Someone like Hammer and Dom Young, if they put up a 30 or 40 this week, that BE is going to come rocketing up.
Yeah.
They're not going to make that much cash. And then in 2 weeks, you're left with a decision, especially if they go back-to-back, not even duds, just back-to-back okay scores. You're left with a decision, are they a keeper? Or were they just a quick 50k cash boost in which it won't be worth it?
Yeah, look, we'll play devil's advocate a bit because I actually quite like Dom Young. I think he'll be probably in the top 6 or 7, I guess, CTW players by the end of the year. So I would be more than happy for anybody to grab him. But yeah, as we said, playing devil's advocate, last week he got a 50 with a try.
Yeah. And let's not playing devil's advocate again further for Dom Young. Look at his numbers last year. 23 tries, 31 line breaks, a few try assists, and a couple LBAs in 23 games. No one's doubting that he's going to do well on that Roosters backline while they're firing. But is he going? Where are these extra points coming from? Where is he getting an extra 5 points on his average from last year? Or 10 really is what you'd want if you're going him, I think. You'd want that 70 average. Is the base going up? Like, where are you expecting it to come?
I think, the people that are chasing it, and look, the Roosters have started hot. We'll give them that. I think that's where they're looking at it. But let's face it, the Knights went on an absolute tear last year as well. So it's, I think he'll average a bit higher. I don't know if he'll get to 70 for the year. I think he might be sort of mid to high 60s. So that's really, 3-4 points better off?
Yeah, across the season. Maybe high 60s I could see him getting to.
Yeah.
Maybe few more tackle busts just as a developing young player on the Roosters backline if they're firing all season. I can understand why people are doing it. I don't think it's a bad move, but I think on a normal season it would be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
But there's so many center wings.
And that's it. That's the big thing. We talk about fullback roulette. We might have to get into CTW roulette. It could be something that's an option to go for.
Just fill up your center wings.
Yeah.
You could have 2 reserves there if you really wanted to. You could have 7 that could be where we're working towards. We're not going to be there anytime soon, but having a few more gun center wings looks like the play early.
Yeah, it's. I mean, look, as we've said, this is unlike any other kind of super coach season. So I think you've just got to strike while the iron's hot, and just get in a few of these guys that are going well at the moment. But just be prepared to jump off if things start to turn. Like, look, we're talking about Dom Young. He is playing the Panthers this week. So even though Cleary's out, are their defensive structures going to change all that much? And he's attacking their left-hand side, which is unaffected.
Yeah, I think this is the little difference between Hammer and Young this week. I think if you're grabbing Young, you're grabbing him going, this guy is a keeper. I want the Roosters right winger. It's a hot spot. They look good. I want to grab this guy, maybe at his bottom. Maybe this is the cheapest we're going to see him for a while, and that's entirely possible. But if you're getting him against Penrith, you want to be sure he's a keeper. Whereas, let's talk about Hammer. Titans this week, Tigers next week, low BE. But I'm an owner, for full disclosure.
Yeah.
Started with him. Saved my week round 2. Only reason I held on and was good round 1. You see the argument online at the moment. 94 with 3 tries.
Yeah.
Sure. Week before, 79 with no tries, only 1 try assist and only 1 line break. Like, what's your opinion on him?
Full disclosure once again, I will be bringing in the Hammer this week. The one thing I think you've got to, with his 93, is that there was only the 1 try that had a line break with it. So I think that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing, I guess, in the same note, is I think that's how Hammer's going to score a lot of his tries, in the sense that, say, one of the wingers gets puts away and he's backing up, or somebody makes a break up the middle and he's the guy that, they draw the fullback and then pass to the Hammer who runs away. I think that is just the way that the Dolphins like to attack. So that's something that I think, we all need to be aware. And I'm kind of looking at him as a bit of a cash grab more than a keeper.
He's interesting on Titans and Tigers. If he scores, let's say 50 and 50, just running numbers in my head and just trying to figure out, he's probably only going to make maybe 60K. What are you doing in 2 weeks? If the answer to that is you're definitely selling, then
is he worth the trade-in?
Is he worth the risk?
Yeah.
He could go big. If he goes 90-90, you're laughing and you're probably holding. One thing I've looked at as an owner is his draw and the Dolphins' draw up until Origin is fantastic.
Yeah.
The 3 teams that scare me the most if I have an attacking player at the moment are Penrith, the Melbourne Storm, and the Roosters. I would not want to have my attacking players against them, and he plays none of them.
Yeah.
Plays Cowboys, Eels, Knights, Warriors away, and Manly are probably the toughest ones, but all of those games could have points.
That's exactly right. And that's where I'm personally looking at for him, is that while I'm looking at it as a cash grab, it's that thing of I'll hold him probably for 5 or 6 weeks, wait till we get much closer to Origin, where he is almost certainly getting picked. In which case he's definitely a trade out at Origin, because the Dolphins actually play all 3 rounds, which means he's going to be probably missing almost the entire Origin period due to being away at Origin. Then there's buys.
Dolphins players are trades out.
Yeah.
Both him and Flegler, if you own them, are going to be trade outs come round 13, maybe round 12 beforehand even. But you're riding the roller coaster with Hammer, I think.
Yeah. I'm happy to buy a ticket. I'm happy to buy a ticket. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'm at 50K, so I'm happy to take a bit of a risk.
If you're taking a risk on him, what's stopping you paying an extra 30K for someone like Jacob Kiraz? I think he was a popular conversation in the hub today.
That's a very, very good point. He looked back to his best on the weekends, cracked the 100. It's something I'm going to need to weigh up, because he looked good.
He looked good. I think the problem with Kiraz is he's just in that position in the Dogs, right center. It's a non-dominant side. It's not a good team. Granted, it's irrelevant when he's putting up 70 in base and power, but he's not going to do that every week. Does he get those attacking stats enough to complement that floor?
That's the question. I mean, like they've shown that they want to hit the winger so far, and he's cashed in. If Kiraz was there, I can only imagine what people would be like. He'd be in most teams, I would imagine, if he was on the wing. It's a bit of a funny one. It's because I don't think this is the back line that we'll see come end of year for the Dogs. I think there'll be a changes. I wouldn't be surprised if we do see like Cherry or Sherry, however it's pronounced, back in at some point. So it'll be interesting. I'm not sure, because I think if that's the case, then Kiraz goes back to the wing almost certainly.
Yannick's putting up the numbers he is at the moment, and then has that attacking threat. Yeah, it's probably a bit more appealing. He's tackling a lot of those center, which is lifting that base.
Yeah, certainly. It's definitely given me something to think about. If I had the money with my trades this week, though, I think the absolute number one target, if you can do it, has to be Val Holmes. Like
he's coming in for me.
Yeah, he is looking almost in career best form with the way, or at least from a super coach perspective, because I remember when he absolutely killed it for the Sharks those few years ago. But he's looking amazing. And I think he'll definitely be in the top 4 CT dub by the end of the year.
The scary thing about Val is that 144 wasn't from a hat trick or a ridiculous amount of line breaks. It was a try assist, a line break assist, and then an extra line break there. So he had 2 try involvements that had a line break part of it, and then just an extra line break to the side. That for 144 is insane. And you look at the week before where he had the 54 with a try assist, line break assist, but he kicked 2 from 5, very unlike Val.
Yeah.
And he had 5 errors, again, very unlike Val.
Yeah.
And was a obstruction call away from another try line break. He looks unreal. And I went Latrell over in last week, which was painful. He was in my team early stages of preseason for quite a while up until the cheapies didn't come, and I couldn't stretch it a gun center wing to start. I'm correcting that this week, and I want to get him before that price gets away. I would hate to be a non-owner next week when he plays the Titans at 4:00 on a Sunday afternoon in Townsville. That could be a scary watch as a non-owner.
That is about as juicy as it gets at the moment. Like, because the Titans are a shambles, and with Tino gone, their spiritual leader, who knows how they're going to go over the next few weeks at least until they kind of regroup. It's going to be very, very scary.
I believe it might have been the corresponding fixture last year. Maybe it was at Gold Coast rather than North Queensland when the Cowboys season unravelled. And I don't think Peyton would have forgotten that. I don't want to even think about not owning him next week. So I'm getting him in this week.
Yeah.
It's part of a few different moves. That Tino money coming in rather handy. But I agree with you. But I think there's so many options in that same week. Lomax, RTS is at fullback this week. You've got...
Just before I'm just going to jump in there. Just before we move away from Val, I've got one more juicy stat for you. So they're obviously playing the Broncos this week. Good Friday, big game. I know Suncorp's going to be pretty much sold out. Now, I had a look today, and so obviously the team that's conceding the most Supercoach points at the moment, the Titans. I think everyone kind of gets that. The Broncos are actually tied for second most conceded points across the board with the Bunnies. So for what people might have thought would be a really tough matchup, that might be that sort of thing that can just swing it for Val.
As a Broncos fan, I'm not confident going into this week. I think with the loss of Flegler over the off season, our middles were a bit tight. We need Haas and Carrigan on the field. I think with no Haas, we're gonna struggle in the forward battle. And when you lose the forward battle, it's very hard to win a game of footy. I wouldn't be put off by the fixture for Val at all.
The only thing that might count against him is, funnily enough, the Piakura injury, because
agreed.
He might look to hit Nanai at Jaden Hunt over and over again to see if they can sort of attack that right-hand side for the Cowboys rather than the left. So, yeah, that's about the only downside I can see to Val at the moment. And like, it's the other thing I think that you've really got to look at is that, do you want Val in 3 weeks? Would you want him in 3 or 4 weeks? Because he could almost be $1 million in the game.
Could be. I wouldn't let that be the reason you don't get him.
No, that's
he'd need to go nuts. But it's the points. If you miss, there's always a guy. I've been playing Supercoach, I think, for like 15 years now. There is usually a guy in the first 10 rounds. It was Hines last year. He's the one that did the damage. I think Pappenhausen 1 year, Turbo 1 year. 1 year it was Jordan Rapana in the Leipana days back in the day. Milford did it 1 year. I think that might have been the Catfish one where Milford just went nuts early.
Yeah.
I think Val could be that guy.
The one that always sticks in my mind as the player people might not have thought of was when Gareth Widdop just went insane for the Dragons. And it was literally
170 odd.
Yeah. And this is in the days where scores didn't get to that, and he just went nuts for about half a season. So that's, I wouldn't be surprised if Val goes into that category at all.
But 800K?
Yeah.
I can see why people as well would go, but instead of Val, I can get Hammer and Young, or I can get Appy and Hammer.
Yeah.
So got to weigh that up, and I don't think it's a particularly easy call because, look, Val has to kill it at that price. If you bring him in at 800K and he averages 80, fantastic, but you're basically then just getting your value.
Yeah.
So you've got to be really confident to pay out.
Like, that is the one thing as well. Unless he goes like really insane this week, I don't think his price will go up much more than, say, 20K, 30K probably. So if you can make the moves, you could potentially still get him for a decent price next week before the Titans game. So that's something I think, that is to keep in mind as well.
Of course. I think we spent a bit of time on Val. Let's
talk about the others. As we've talked about, there are so many others, and you started to mention there. RTS. Look, we've got, Lomax is killing it. That there are heaps.
There are so many. Tago and Toa are barely spoken about. Granted, they've got the buy coming up, but Toa just had a 120. Tago, I think we can look at the games and go, he definitely benefited twice from in-game injuries. Yeah. But it's still Penrith, and they will punish those things, and Tago's a very good footballer.
Yeah.
There's going to be, I just hope these centre wings keep it going because it's just going to make it so entertaining.
Yeah.
Adding Garrick, we haven't even mentioned Garrick yet.
That's exactly it. And then it's that there's so many. So I think, I don't know if you could potentially go wrong as long as you sort of aim to get 2 or 3 of them at least within the next few weeks.
You want to get these guys in, I think.
Yeah.
Unless you're seeing another position where there's some value that is a little outside the box, go for your life. But some of these centre wings just look like they're basing 45 to 55 in just before attacking stats come in. Even Cobbo's looked fantastic in that left centre position for the Broncos. There are so many options. You don't want to be stuck with Strange in your starting centre wing at this point. You really want to move on those things, I think.
All right. So I guess before we move off the centre wings, pick you're the three, we'll say three because I think four is probably a stretch too much for people, that you would want to have by, say, round 10?
Holmes,
Yep, I agree with that. He's in my top three.
Lomax,
Yep, I would have Lomax as well.
and Garrick.
Yeah, I like it.
I only have, I'll have one of those this week.
Yeah, I'm looking at, I would say definitely, I think Val and Lomax are my absolute two priority targets. Look, it's Val, we've obviously discussed. Lomax won't play Origin, and I think he's in for a very good year. The Dragons are attacking to that right winger spot, so I think he's just going to keep scoring tries, and he's obviously going to keep kicking goals. So I think the Dragons also only improve as the year goes on.
I think you're going to get some duds from Lomax. I think there's going to be some 40s. I think that's the big difference between him and Val. It's the team. So like that game against the Dolphins, that's going to happen to the Dragons from time to time this year. The Dragons might score 4 points or 6 points. But yeah, their attack's shaping that way. He's goal kicking. They're kicking to him. Every team seems to have a plan of kicking to him. So he's just getting these hit ups every time, even if it's just a point for catching a bomb and stepping a couple meters. He's just racking those up. He's roaming. The only concern I have for Lomax is that Dragon's right edge has now been torched 2 weeks running. Absolutely torched. So at what point does Shane Flanagan go, a change needs to be made here? And that doesn't mean it's going to be Lomax.
Yeah,
Lomax could stay in his position and they could just get a different edge back rower there. They could drop Jack Bird. They could move the halves. There's so many different ways they could do it, but that would be, I guess, the only.
Yeah, very much agree. All right, we've talked about this center wings, I think, long enough, and we could probably go on with them for about another hour, but we'll move on to something else. So with that, I guess the next thing we need to talk about is looking like we've got a bit of a bumper crop of cheapies coming through at the moment, headlined by Galvin this week.
Yeah. Don't overthink it. Get him in.
Yep. I had a look. If he doesn't, I would almost be happy to play him in 17s with the way he's playing at the moment.
He's probably going to be my starting 5'8" for the next few weeks. And I don't feel bad about it. It does not concern me even a little bit. He's got base. He's got power. He's involved in attack. He looks likely. Looks good NRL-wise. Looks good Supercoach-wise.
Yeah.
I just don't really see a reason not to get him.
Yeah, he's getting his points in so many ways. So he's happy to throw a bit of an offload. He's happy to get a couple of tackle busts. He's proven to be very solid in defense so far. He's not missing tackles. So it's just it's one of the reasons we like Hines so much is because he's an accumulator. I think Galvin, obviously not to the same degree, but he's going to be that kind of player that just collects points.
Yeah. I think the decision with Galvin for people unlike me that won't have him starting would just be, when do you play him? When do you not play him? Because he will have a low one. He's a young half. A 25 to 30 is coming. If you can bench him the week that happens, that's a good way to make some ground.
Yeah, agreed. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb. I think he will probably be cheapie of the year. There's a couple of others looking good, but I'm happy to lay down my I'm gonna die on that sword.
I can't argue. I don't have someone to throw up against him at the moment, to be honest. So he's a fair chance. If it just depends whether Benji can keep these Tigers playing well, or whether or not they fall in a heap. Because if you fall in a heap, there's Latu Finu waiting in the wings. There's Jaden Sullivan still waiting in the wings. So I'm sure he'd love another shot. But for the time being, that spot is all Galvin's.
Yes. Now, talking about cheapies and the Tigers, Finu, he is looking good as well.
He's interesting, isn't he?
Yeah. Benji's trusting him. He's getting the minutes that a few of these other cheapies haven't gotten so far. So if you need one in second row, that's his only downside, as it is a second row only. And he's not quite base, but he's, yeah, if you need somebody cheap there, I think he's the guy.
Yeah, I think he's okay. I don't think I'm as high on him as you might be, because if I look at his numbers, week 1, 58 minutes, 75 points, that came with a try, had a base plus power of 47. Not bad at all. Week 2, 46 minutes for 33 base plus power. That PPM's down a little bit, but it wasn't even up that high in the first place. For a guy coming on mainly playing in the middle, that's not a high work rate per se. And that BE is a little bit deceptive. It's got the 75 in there.
Yeah.
That's going to roll out. If he drops another 35, his BE next week's going to be something like 20.
Yeah.
It's maybe.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Not in the same category as Galvin, but I don't think anybody else is. But he's one of the, I said, for second row, I think he's the guy if you need somebody there. But the other one that I am very closely keeping an eye on and will likely bring in next week is Blaise Tuilagi for the Eels. Named as 5/8 for basically to replace Moses. Going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, 60 odd on the board as well doesn't exactly hurt that prospective break even. I think it's pretty simple. He scores well this week. He looks good this week. You trade him in.
Yep.
I would be expecting that most people will be trading him in next week. I don't think it's a guarantee, because it'll be, from my understanding of him, he's not a halfback per se. He's more that fullback from my understanding. So it's a bit of a shift. Not sure of his experience. Let's see how he goes at 5'8". Looks good at center.
Yeah, I think he's that guy where, maybe doesn't have much of a kicking game, but he's there to run it more and, keep it simple in the passing game. So I don't think it'll hurt his base too much. Maybe his ability to potentially get some attacking stats because he's not running off. I believe, was he on the left? I believe he was.
Yeah, he was on the left edge, left center.
So he's not running off Dylan Brown anymore, most likely. And he won't be there but if Sean Lane was to throw an offload, he won't be there to potentially score a try from that. So I don't know if we're going to see many more 60s, but I think maybe 30 to 40 is probably where it'll be.
Yeah, we want to see what that floor is.
Yeah.
Because this is still a rookie half without the goal kicking. How good was Isaiah Katoa as a cheapie last year?
Yeah, not bad.
Cornelius as a cheapie the year before.
Yeah.
They were okay, but if you missed them, it wasn't really a big hit.
No, it
takes up a center wing spot as well. But worth keeping in your plans, but I reckon still just take a look at him this week.
Yeah.
If he scores a try or doesn't get some attack, you're going to bring him in. But if he drops, say, a 25 and doesn't look overly attack and it's the Brown and Gutho show, it might be a different story.
Mm-hmm. No, very much agreed. Now, one thing I think I'd like to cover now, because it kind of something we may have discovered, like to talk about later, is players getting duels. I don't know how they'll judge Dylan Brown potentially getting halfback.
No, I don't know either. And it could be huge for some people. Oh, no, the timing's not going to work out, because before round 6, I think if you've got Cleary, if you've held to round 6, you're probably holding to round 7. So it's not overly crucial there. Potentially for people that want to get off Hines, it would have been useful, but I really don't know. But I'm trying to work out whether or not it's going to be useful for some people. It might at the time, but I wouldn't be banking on it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't bank on it either. But one thing I think to really keep in mind is I saw some information from NRL Physio earlier today that the Eels have said there's an 8-week time frame for Mitch Moses getting back. That's almost certainly not going to be the case. Is that, look, obviously it's not 100% accurate, but everybody else seems to be more around that sort of 10 to 11 week mark at the earliest, because it's such a difficult injury to heal. So I wouldn't be surprised if we find almost even up until Origin that we've got this situation for the Eels. So I think that's one other thing to keep in mind. If you were looking at Dill Brown, I would maybe hold off a week to see how this shakes out.
Oh, if you're a non-owner, you're definitely taking a look.
Yeah.
I know some people, I've seen some comments about maybe trading in Dill Brown this week. Even with the matchup, I think it's silly, in all honesty. I don't think it's a good move to get Brown this week.
No.
Let's take a look at what this side looks like now for the next, at least pre-Origin, and see how he's structuring. If he's not running, he's not a good asset, and his numbers are already down on last year.
Yeah.
His pride and joy, his base plus power, the whole reason everyone picked him to start the season is he's meant to be the guy that gets you 50 without any attack.
Yeah.
Last year, I think he was going at, if I get it up now in front of me, he had a base power PPM of 0.57. So that across an 80-minute game, getting you 45 points.
Yeah. Now it's actually something I was going to mention it later, but I will. I'll hold off till later, and then I'll talk about a little pod move that I'm thinking of that you might already have an idea about. But anyway,
I know what you're thinking.
Yep. You know what? I'll cover it now. I might as well. I think, my namesake per se might be a very sneaky pickup in, say, maybe round 6.
Oh. Okay, that's not where I thought you were going.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I thought you were going in a different direction. Talk to me about Munster.
If Dill Brown, the Storm have basically confirmed he's almost certainly back round 5. It's 99.9% confirmed. I've got to think, for me, the Storm have looked quite good, even though they've been down on troops. So you've got Hughes is coming back in. You've got the full spine will be shaping up to be very, very good.
Yep.
This is when the Storm run at their best. So I think if Dill Brown looks down, I might go something like Dill Brown to Munster, round 6.
I think it's a huge watch. You can't go early on Munster. That groin is a concern.
Yeah.
We need to see how it looks.
That's why I want at least 1 week to see. And then it could be the little pod move that I make to try to catch some ranks up.
Yeah, look, I don't mind it. I don't have Brown at the moment. Like I said, Galvin's going to be my starting 5'8" for a little while. I'm keeping a big eye on Jaden Campbell this week in terms of that area. I think
that as well.
I think he was popular in preseason. He's worth a look, even in that rubbish Titans side. Let's see what happens there. But Munster's a good one to keep an eye on. The pod move I thought you were going to be talking about was that one of the worst kept secrets in Supercoach is the impact that Mitch Moses or Dylan Brown out has on one Clint Gutherson.
Yeah.
Takes the goal kicking and just takes control of that side.
Yeah. That is, very, very close watch this week, because if he looks like he is given the keys to the kingdom, we saw what he did last year. It was pretty much the difference between doing really well and falling behind over Origin was when Gutherson just went 100. We know that he has it in him. So, very, very close week. Very close watch, I should say, this week.
Yeah, there's a few close watches this week. I think it's an interesting one.
And I think and I'll just say that's something I think everyone's sort of got to keep in mind, is that there's going to be some really big opportunities like that over the coming weeks. Keep an eye out for where you can grab them.
Put out your fires where you can.
Yeah. And then, see if you can strike.
Look for those opportunities. One thing we mentioned earlier was with the Cleary injury, going to a centre wing. I think both of us discussed off air. Neither of us have that option. We are stuck with no tools to move into the halfback spot. No Brooks, no Hutcho. It's halfback or halfback only.
Yes.
If you're going to a halfback this week, who's the guy? And if you're not going to, or do you hold Cleary? Do you hold him the whole time? Do you hold for a week and reassess? Where is your head at the moment?
Well, first of all, because this doesn't affect me because I don't have Luke Brooks either. I'm unfortunately one of the people without Hutchinson and have to figure out what I'm going to do with Cleary. But we'll talk about the Luke Brooks situation. Look, I think if you can go Luke Brooks from 5/8 as into your backup halfback, if that's the move you want to make, do it. And it might be worth just running with as like your situation. I'm assuming it'll be Galvin and Strange for a couple of weeks.
Galvin and Flano.
There you go. Even better.
Big shout out to Kyle Flanagan. First time I played him on the weekend for a very nice 71.
Yes.
Appreciated in my time of need. But yeah, someone can if you've got that set up where you've got Flanagan there or you've got Galvin there and you can move Brooks in a halfback and then Strange into 5/8, you can go the center wings that we all spoke about earlier.
Yeah, exactly. So you look at your duels, see what you can do. But anyway, halfback only options. Is there anyone at all that you even maybe like?
This week, Brooks at a stretch.
Yeah.
The matchup's good. That right edge of the Dragons has been awful, and Brooks is the left side of the half. So I think if you're going to go someone this week, that's where I'd be going. Manly look good. He looks good. I think he's passing the eye test, but his Supercoach points aren't quite reflecting it. That's a little concerning. Needs a lot of attack to get the scores. On the weekend, it was 50 with, I think, a line break, a try assist, and a line break assist. That's not ideal. But if you were going this week, that's where I'd be looking. But it depends on your team.
Yeah.
If you want to go, if you really like Brooks, go him, free up that cash and use it. If you can get cash elsewhere, I've got Tino. That's where I'm getting cash.
Yeah.
Trading Cleary versus holding Cleary this week does not impact the quality of my 17.
Yeah, I'm in that same boat. This week, I personally will be holding Cleary to see if there's any other options that pop up next week. Now, the Panthers have a bye in 2 weeks' time. They've said Cleary's probably out up to a month. I think he'll be back for that Tigers game. Like it makes sense. 2 weeks out, the bye, he should be right come the Tigers. And he's always been a bit of a quicker healer over the years past.
Yep. They've also got no reason to rush him back.
That's true.
Second hamstring injury in 2 years. He obviously did it pretty badly last year. If he's not 100%, he's not playing. And I guess that's the risk with the hold strategy. If this was a suspension and we could guarantee he's back in round 7, that hold all the way through, particularly if you've got to hold this week because you're sorting out other fires or it doesn't impact your 17 much, then that hold option would be very, very tempting.
Yeah.
But I've held players through injuries before and they've come back later than expected. You don't want to hold and it gets to round 8 and he's still not named.
Yeah, I'm thinking what I will probably do myself is hold for this week, see if someone maybe looks like they gets a really high score, might then can use maybe flick as a 2-week cash grab and use the Cleary cash then to upgrade. So my thought ideally would be downgrade Cleary to someone and then maybe use that cash probably for Val Holmes next week is what I'd like to do.
Yeah, that's an option. And I think the 3 options that I'm eyeing off all have reasons to not go them. I think Sean Johnson, don't know if he's kicking yet. If he kicks goals this week, he comes right into calculations. Warriors have a great draw.
Yeah.
Second one for me, Jerome Hughes. I believe he scored a pretty good one against the Warriors. So from my understanding, he should have a I'll just even have a look up now. Was 75?
Yep.
It's actually lower than I thought it was. I thought he might have gone better than that. And then, but he's got 2 games at Amy Park against the Broncos. Sorry, it was an 88.
Oh, it was an 88. Sorry, it must have upgraded since I last looked before.
His average is 60. His average is 65. The 88 is what he scored against the Warriors. Yeah, so that's what's going to be his rolling average the next 2 games.
Yeah.
Against Broncos at home, Bulldogs at home. There's a quick maybe cash grab there, a couple points options, and you've got the option to go straight to Cleary. I don't like that he has the Roosters in round 7.
Yeah.
Because if you are forced to hold another week, that's not a good matchup.
Yeah.
Then Sam Walker, the other one, just because he's going to be so cheap.
The only issue with Sam Walker is we don't know. He might be in the same boat as Sean Johnson. We don't quite know if he's got the goal kick in. Like, he's had it so far, but with Suoli'i, he's
a few bad misses. He's a bad kicking game away from potentially losing it. He's kicked on all the field when he's been on the field so far. I'm happy to back him in as long as he kicks this weekend. If he doesn't kick this weekend, then throw him in the bin. Forget about him.
Yeah,
it's not an option. But wait a week, see the lay of the land is my plan, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
If you're working out that your trades you can actually hold in there and it doesn't impact your 17 much. But if there comes a week where it's like I can trade Cleary and have one of these halfbacks in my 17, or I can start Ben Trbojevic, trade.
Yeah. Yep, very much so. Now, look, we've covered enough options for Nathan Cleary so far, so we'll move on to other things. One of the trades for this week that I will be making is, as a bit of a temporary, but then with eyes for down the line, is Harry Grant to Api Koroisau, who has looked fantastic so far this year.
Yeah, he looks unreal.
Yeah, Benji has given him the keys to the Tigers, so I think all of the attack will be more or less running through him. He's looked like he wants to hit big players close to the try line, which is always good. We've seen that with Harry Grant over the years. The only issue I've got with Api is I think he might be playing himself back into the Blues jersey.
I think he's got a mortgage on it.
Yeah.
With Madge coming through as well, the Bunnies are struggling. Cook hasn't looked great. I don't think Robson is going to be the first choice. I think at the moment Api's probably the front runner. And I probably would have thought that coming into the season. And he's definitely done nothing to change that viewpoint over the last couple of weeks. I wouldn't be stressing too much about that personally.
No, not at the moment.
If he's got that Blues jumper come round 13, you will have benefited. You will have more than benefited from Supercoach scoring. So
very much so. So I'm flicking Harry Grant for now for Api, but I will be looking, because I unfortunately still have Danny Levi. I didn't make the jump to Lussick. So one of the other options I've potentially got for next week, and this is something that is very much in my plans, is to go to Api this week and then back from Levi to Harry Grant next week, potentially.
Right. No temptation to just try and find a way to go Levi to Api this week?
Trying, but it would involve me grabbing somebody at halfback, and I'm not sure if I want to do that with other options on the table. And that's where I think a lot of people need to sort of also weigh up, is what works best for your team. And for me this week, I really want to grab one of these center wing guns. And to do so, I need to potentially hold Cleary for a week and make a few other moves.
And that's it. It's all about what your side is. For teams that are in a good position and the teams that have that ability to go Grant to Api, I couldn't talk you out of it. I think Grant hasn't looked at his best. Does it change with the Storm troops coming back? Do we think Harry Grant's going to continue to not have any try involvements?
Yeah. No,
that's going to change. He's too good. Even if he's not playing behind the strongest pack, even if he's not getting as many quick play the balls as he might have in the past, they're going to come. I'm in a position where I've got a lot of trade-out options. Whilst Api is very, very high on my desire list, on my watch list, I've got Grant and Lussick there. With the other players that are not playing, I cannot justify trading either out from my side. Yeah. And I'm going to back Grant to hopefully worst match Api over the next 8 rounds. There might be an opportunity to go Lussick to Api, but with the way things are going, I can't see myself getting fortunate enough to be able to pull that next week.
Yeah. So it's something that was eyeing up as a bit of a pod move, because I don't think many people will look to have 2 hooker guns in their 8, like their 17. So it's something that is an option. Look, I might change my mind, and I'm still not 100% decided on any trades I'm making this week. Look, I think is there any other pods, I guess, that you've seen that look good this week? There's one that I guess we hinted at a bit earlier. I quite like Nanai as an option for this week if you're looking to upgrade in second row. And there's another second rower that I really like the look of in Ice Papali'i.
Yep. I think they're the two.
Yep.
I think what you said earlier, not many people have the double gun hooker early. I think we get so rolled up on making sure we have these pod players, the number that are under 10% or 20%, wherever you want to put it at.
Mm-hmm.
But the combination of players can often be a better pod move.
Yeah,
40% have Appy, 40% have Grant, but there might be 5% that have both. And if both are killing it, that pod strategy can be really, really beneficial. I think I'll come back to the second rowers, but another pod strategy, for example, that I've looked at that I can't do now because Piakura is injured, was getting Smithies out early.
Yeah.
Smithies looks fine. He's going to make a little bit more cash. He's probably going to find his way up to 450K over the next 5 or 6 weeks. But a lot of people are going to be putting him in their 17s for probably an average somewhere between 45 to maybe low 50s. When people are getting that. Yeah. If you can anti-pod that, I really like that. Leads into the second row, though.
Yeah. If Piakura was playing this week, that's exactly what I would have been doing. One of my trades that I'm definitely making is Piakura out for Galvin because I can make that work with Jules.
That's my move as well.
Yeah. So I think that's where people need to look at is maybe that slightly anti-pod or ditching someone that week early or 2 weeks early can just be that thing that gets you up a few ranks, especially at this point when there's still a lot of volatility.
I'm a sucker for getting off a cheapie a little bit early. It has been in my playbook for the last forever that you get off that cheapie because they're not going to be a keeper. They've got maybe a 30 break even. They've still got a little bit of cash to make, but you jump off and they score 40 and they've made not much and you've dodged a lower score.
Yeah. I mean, it's like everyone's just quickly on that. Everyone's got those stories where they've missed out on a player by a couple of grand. They do. Like everyone's got them. But on the whole, most players don't miss the odd 5 to 10K that sometimes is that last little bit that the cheapies eke out. You don't miss that most of the time.
And don't stress if you miss a cheapie. Missing a cheapie doesn't kill you. It's gun scores that kill you.
Yeah.
I've had good years, top 50 years where I've missed the key cheapie.
Yeah.
I think when Corey Harinara was a beast at the Panthers and averaged like 70 for his first 5 games at bottom dollar, didn't own him, still finished well. You don't have to get every single one. Circling back to those pod second row forwards you mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm a Nanai owner.
Very, very nice.
Yeah, he's been handy. It was someone I looked at in preseason, didn't have in that original draft, but after Wong and Piakura both had stuffed up in Vegas, I went through a restructure to get one solid second row forward that I knew the role was because I didn't want to gamble on the roles of all these other second row forwards. So he's been solid. First week was great. Second week was okay. Third week, not as great. You just got to know what you're getting.
Yeah.
He's going to have some 40s. I picked him hoping the work rate would be what it was around Origin 3 last year, where he really lifted his base. Hasn't been the case to start the season. The big score lines could be a factor in that.
Yeah.
But Cowboys are humming. He's going to get attack. I can't see him averaging worse than 60.
Yeah.
And if he goes on a run, you could get a lot more than that. And he's got a ceiling. He's gone 150 before. Not many second rows have that in them.
Exactly right. So I guess we'll cover a couple of questions that we've had come through. I put out a thread in the Discord earlier today, and from Richard, he's got Levi to Appy locked in. Like it.
Yep.
He goes, currently have Levi, Torpiki, and Lukey to Appy, Holmes, and Blaze. He's holding Cleary. So he's thinking he just needs to cover the points. And look, we've spoken about him now in depth. Holmes, I think, can cover that. And alternatively, he's can go to Appy, Dill, Young and KPP, who we haven't talked about.
Ooh.
If you'd pick between those two options, so that's Appy, Holmes, and Blaze versus Appy, Dom Young, and KPP, which way would you go?
This was kind of the exact dilemma we were throwing up earlier. Throw Appy out. He's a common denominator across these.
Yes.
Holmes and a bottom dollar rookie that we don't really know how he's going to score in the position versus a Dom Young and a KPP who, if he continues playing 80 minutes on that edge, could genuinely be a keeper at second row forward.
Yeah.
That was my decision. I think I would still lean to the Holmes option. Just noting that KPP's BE is still not that low.
Yeah.
And you could find another way to him next week. Although if you've got a clear plan to get Holmes next week regardless, then if you've got that in place and you can get Holmes next week, Young and KPP, but plans change, it's a dynamic game, I'd prefer just to lock him in and find another way to KPP next week because it's a lot easier to get in a 400, maybe 450K back row than a potentially 850K center.
Yeah, no, completely agree. That's exactly my thoughts as well. We've also had one question in the live chat here, which, I'm not sure about this one. So, Captain Mitchell Barnett and Vice Captain Kieran Foran, good combo. No. To put it lightly, no. Kieran Foran's never been a proper option in Supercoach. Decent rugby league player, just not a Supercoach option. And I think you need to chase higher upside than Mitch Barnett.
I'm assuming this has just got to be a good draft question of a deep league to have Kieran Foran there. Given he missed round 1 and he had the bye round 2, I wouldn't be thinking too many people would own him anyway.
No.
So let's just go with no and move on.
Yes. We've also got another question's just come through. Lomax. Look, we covered him earlier. I think he's somebody that needs to be, we've said top of your
great option.
List. Maybe not this week because I think there's a couple of other options that are better this week, but he has to be in the plans in the next few weeks. He is for me.
I think it's, get him. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to, personally. I've got my center wing now is Holmes, Hammer, RTS, and May. I just don't think I'll be trading any of those out anytime soon. He's an option if Hammer doesn't do what I'm hoping him to do. But great option, Lomax.
Yes, like it a lot. All right. I guess what we'll move into now is captains, vice captains for this week. What are you thinking?
This is electric this week, captaincy. I had a look before. Overall ownership, there's not a single person above 12% captained. And in the top 10%, there's no one over 15% captained. I cannot remember the last time that I saw a captaincy week that was so wide open as this week. Usually someone's 30%. Usually everyone's on a Cleary or a Hines or a Turbo or a Ponga. Like, this is an opportunity.
Yeah, I think as the week moves along, I think we will see Turbo probably emerge as the number one.
Yeah.
But I think this could be a week where it might be worth even maybe taking a roll of the dice on someone that you think might go well, especially with the way scores have been. You can still recover if you have a bad captain. At least I hope so after Hines this week. So I'm not sure if I'll play it completely safe, but it will be an interesting one.
Yeah, look, I've looked at my side and I've got about 6 options that I'm considering. Got Latrell for a bounce back, Hines for a bounce back, Turbo against that leaky Dragons edge,
Mhm.
RTS back at fullback.
Yeah.
My shiny new toy, Valentine Holmes. There's like even a few people throwing out Hammer as a captain against the Titans. Not for me.
Yeah.
Maybe a BC flyer, but there is
Yeah.
so many good options, and I don't know
Yeah.
where my head is at the moment here.
No, look. I think if you really want to play it safe, as I said, I think Turbo's the way to go, because I think that's just where everyone will potentially end up as the whole. But if it might even be that thing, as somebody's just said in the chat now, you might even go VC Turbo and roll into someone else. There's a few options there.
I think you've just got to look at your side again. Who's going out? Like for me, because of the Cleary injury and holding Grant, my 17 this week's not great. I've got a few people in that 15, 16, 17 spot that I would prefer to be NPRing. Strange, Smithies, and Ben Drabojevic.
Yeah.
I'm trying to decide of those three, which is the one I want the least. And that will determine whether or not I can VC Turbo. If Ben Drabojevic is the worst of those three, it's Captain Turbo and VC earlier, so I can drop him to loop if I need be.
That's a very, very good point. Yeah, look at the VC options and then who you would have to potentially use the loop.
Yeah, and who you drop.
Yeah.
You don't want to VC Turbo and then have a look at the games coming after and go, I've got to drop an Appy, or I've got to drop a Hammer, or I've got to drop this actually good player to loop.
And let's face it, Viliami Fifita is in enough teams to potentially ruin any VC loops that people might have going.
It was pleasurable to see him named as 20th man this week. Not in the 17. No funny business, Shane Flanagan. Keep him out. Doesn't need to be there. I mean, Hughes AE is probably not going to be overly much better, but maybe that can be a 20, 25 at minimum. So brings that loop option a bit more to play.
Yeah, definitely better than a single-digit score of 9 that Viliami Fifita got last week. So I think that sort of, is there any other players, I guess, that you'd be looking to target potentially as a sit v start? Like, I'm actually going to roll the dice on a Bostock this week because I think it's good Titans.
Yep, I think you're doing well if Bostock is in your discussion for a sit v start. I would play Bostock over a Strange. I'd play him over a Flanagan. I'd play him over a Ben Drabojevic. I'd probably play him over a Lussick if you're holding on to him as well, if you've got an Appy Lussick combo. I think there's a few ones, like everyone's in a bit of a different position here. So I'm just going to chuck out 3 or 4 names here and you rank them.
Yep. Okay.
So Ben Drabojevic, Ethan Strange, Lockie Galvin, Joey Lussick.
I think for me, number one for this week alone, I would be happy playing probably Ben Drabojevic.
Right.
Purely on matchup.
Yeah.
So as you've mentioned, the leaky Right Dragons side, I think Burbo might get a bit of love there. So that's why I'd be happy to play him. Then I would go Galvin at number 2. I would then have Lussick, then Strange.
Right. Okay. Yeah, a little different. I've got Burbo at last.
Okay.
Galvin, Lussick, Strange, Burbo, purely on the fact that I at least know the first 3's roles and I know what their likely minutes are going to be. Burbo, I'd hate to play him. He comes off at the 50th minute because Waddell's had a good performance at the end of the last game and earned an extra 10. But you're right. That Drabojevic, that edge, we said it a couple of times, that Dragons right edge has been absolutely terrible. And we've just had a comment come through that might be worth putting up on the screen about V Fifita might be coming back on in.
Yeah. If I hope that they shuffle the forward pack some other way, that V Fifita does not come in, ideally, because he's shown to be an AE nightmare and he's much more valuable when he's not playing for us at the moment.
Getting up their team quickly. Sewer out also makes that right edge even weaker again, which does increase the Ben Trbojevic interest, because I imagine that Fatala Mariner comes back onto that edge, and then onto the bench, you're probably going to have, well, if it's forward for a forward, there's only Michael Molo and Vili Fafita on the extended. So 50-50. Hope it's Molo.
Yeah, pretty much. So it's, but at the same time, I also think come this end of this week, I wouldn't be surprised if they're all within sort of 5 to 10 points of one another. So I think it's going to be, to be honest, a roll of the dice, and that could be more accurate than anything that we're picking.
Could be. Yeah, it's a tough one. There are these weeks, though. There are these weeks that happen that there are 4 or 5 good captaincy options. 4 of them stink it and 1 goes nuts. We saw that with Hines this exact round 12 months ago. All the captaincy options for him went awful, and then he blitzed it. You want to try. You want to get that one right. That's what's going to split the pack, and it's coming. We just don't know what round it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's that's exactly it, and I think that's also a bit of the way that Supercoach has kind of gone as a whole this year, is that we've got these players like me last week. I was lucky enough to get in. Teddy was looking fantastic early doors after the 140, down-dated to 135, initially over 140. I was absolutely flying until Captain Hines. Look, this can happen to anyone. So don't get too much FOMO until the end of the round. And even then, I would say, if you can, try to look to see how a player's actually playing in their team and their role and how things are going. Because as we said, like, you might go, oh, Hammer with a hat trick and he only gets 90 points. I don't know. So that can point you in 2 ways. One, maybe he doesn't have that sort of 150 upside that you think he could. Or, as I said earlier, he had a couple of tries there without line breaks. So maybe he does have that, 120, 130 in him potentially.
That's it. At the end of the day, these stats, we can present them. Others on social media can present them. Stats can be manipulated. Stats can tell a narrative that you want them to tell. If you're clever enough to just rearrange some numbers and cherry pick them here and cherry pick them there, and there's nothing better than the good old-fashioned eye test. If a player looks good, the scores are reflecting it, then that's a great buy. Yeah.
Look, I always go back to, I remember, Isaiah Papali'i, when he was first season at the Eels, the scores initially weren't through the roof. He was only getting about 50s, maybe 60s, but he looked fantastic. He looked fantastic. And then he built into the season, and I believe he ended up averaging mid-70s by the end.
Yep.
And
he was one.
And that was the it. And it was that year, it was, you looked at and you go, the people that did really well saw that he was doing well and jumped on early.
Yep. Back your eye test. Exactly. Good and bad.
Yep.
A couple highly owned players that don't look overly great. If that's your read on it, jump off them.
Exactly. Back your gut. Back what you're seeing, because that's the best way to play Supercoach.
It's a good spot to finish this up, I reckon.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. So with that, thank you for joining us tonight. Look, as we've alluded to more than once, the Discord is a great, I guess, resource for anyone. You can bounce ideas potentially about your trades. We've got that option. Jump in, have a chat with Supercoach. That's what we all love to do anyway. I know that's what I'd be doing if I wasn't recording this podcast. It's what I do when I'm not recording the podcast. It's a fantastic resource. So jump in, join in if you're not in there already. I'm assuming most people are, to be fair.
Come on in.
Yep. Look, it's early in the season. This is a marathon. Don't lose hope yet. Once again, thank you for joining us. Thank you, Myth, for joining me tonight.
Always a pleasure.
Enjoy your Easter and enjoy the footy.
Good night from us.